So you have a mass uprising, a government falls, and then what? That's the huge question that always comes up after a revolution. Today, we're going to dive deep into the document that tries to answer that question for Bangladesh, the July National Charter 2025. And look, this isn't just some dry political paper. It's a blueprint, a plan to fundamentally rebuild the entire state. This is the story of how a nation is trying to start over, right from the foundations.
You know, this one sentence from the Charter's introduction, it just perfectly captures the weight of this moment. It's not about just swapping out leaders. It's about reconstructing a democratic and humane state. That's a massive promise. It signals a new beginning, but it also screams about the incredible responsibility they're facing.
Okay, so that powerful promise, that idea of a fresh start, it makes you wonder, why was something so drastic, so fundamental, even necessary? To really get what this charter is trying to do, we have to first understand the problems, the deep, deep problems it was written to solve.
The spark, of course, was that massive student-led uprising that just exploded across the country in mid-2024. But, as the charter itself makes really clear, this wasn't just some sudden burst of anger. No, this was more like a volcano that had been building pressure for years, even decades, and it finally erupted.
Now, what's so interesting here is how the charter tells its own story. This isn't just a list of dates, it's a narrative. It starts with the 1971 liberation, framing it as this great unfulfilled promise. Then it walks us through a 53-year journey of setbacks, leading to what it bluntly calls a 15-year slide into autocracy, where all the major institutions were hollowed out. From that perspective, the 2024 uprising wasn't the end of the story, it was the moment people demanded a hard reset.
And we have to remember, behind all this political history, there is a very real, very tragic human cost. The charter is upfront about it, stating that over 1,400 civilians, and that includes women and children, died during the movement. This was not a peaceful transition. That number really highlights the incredible sacrifice that was made and the huge weight on the shoulders of those now trying to build something new.
So the old system is gone. There's this massive public demand for change. How in the world do you start building a new system that everyone can actually agree on? Let's get into the process of how this blueprint was made. Because, and this is key, it wasn't just dreamed up by a few people in a dark room. It was a very deliberate and very public effort.
This was a serious, step-by-step process to build legitimacy. First, they set up an interim government. Then, they broke down this gigantic problem into smaller pieces, creating 6 expert commissions to study everything from the Constitution to the judiciary. Then, a National Unity Commission took all those expert ideas and, get this, held 47 different meetings with dozens of political parties to hash out a consensus. The final charter we're talking about is the result of all that back and forth.
All right, so we've seen how the charter came to be. Now let's get into the meat of it, the new plan for actually governing Bangladesh. And as we go through this, you're going to see one central idea over and over again: rebalancing power, to make absolutely sure it can never be concentrated in one person's hands again. The whole plan really hits on 4 key things. First, it completely redefines the power of the president and the prime minister. Second, it brings in a whole new second house of parliament for more checks and balances. Third, it puts a strict time limit on how long anyone can be in charge. And finally, it tries to give individual lawmakers more power to actually represent their voters instead of just towing the party line.
And this right here is a massive change in how the government is structured. In the old system, on the left, everything was centered on the prime minister. The president was mostly a figurehead. But look at the proposed system on the right. The charter wants to give the president real, independent power to appoint the heads of watchdog groups, like the Human Rights Commission. The goal is to create an immediate, built-in check on the prime minister's authority.
And here it is, one of the simplest, but maybe one of the most powerful ideas in the whole charter. No one person can be prime minister for more than 10 years. Total. That's it. A simple, clear rule designed to stop any one person from holding on to power for too long, which the charter points to as a core problem of the past.
Another huge structural change is creating a 2-house legislature. So the main parliament would stick around as the lower house, but they're adding a brand new 100-member upper house, a Senate. And its main job? To review laws, to provide oversight. Think of it like a mandatory second opinion for every single law that gets passed, adding another critical layer of scrutiny.
Of course, a fancy new government structure doesn't mean a thing if you don't have fair elections and a justice system you can trust to enforce the rules. So let's look at how the charter plans to fix those 2 pillars of democracy.
And this is a big one. They're bringing back the caretaker government system. Now, this is a really interesting idea. Basically, right before an election, the government in power steps aside completely. A totally neutral, non-political government comes in for about 90 days, with one job and one job only. Make sure the election is completely free and fair. It's kind of like bringing in a neutral referee for the biggest game in town.
But wait, who picks the neutral referee? Well, the Charter has this incredible multi-step process that's basically designed to force everyone to compromise. It starts with politicians trying to agree. If they can't, they have to pick from each other's lists. If that doesn't work, judges come in to help. And if all else fails, they use a ranked choice vote. The entire system is built with backups for the backups, all to make sure they can find a candidate everyone accepts.
Now, for the courts. To protect them from political influence, the Charter has a bunch of big ideas. A new independent commission will pick Supreme Court judges, not just the politicians. The head judge, the Chief Justice, will be chosen based on seniority, not political favors. And a new secretariat will let the courts control their own money and staff, which is crucial for real independence. It's all about making the judiciary a truly equal branch of government.
So, we've looked at the diagnosis of the problem and the incredibly detailed prescription for a cure. This charter is a seriously comprehensive vision for a new kind of country. But a vision on paper is one thing. Making it real is something else entirely. Which brings us to the big question. What happens now?
If you take away just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Every single reform we've talked about, from the president's powers to the two-house parliament to the caretaker government, it's all designed for one main reason: to systematically build checks and balances into the very DNA of the state. It's about creating a system that's more resilient and more democratic than any single person who might be in charge.
The July National Charter is, without a doubt, a remarkable document. It's a roadmap for the future, born from a revolution and built on consensus. But here's the thing, a map is not the journey. The next chapter, and probably the hardest one, is turning this ambitious blueprint into reality. Will the political will be there to see it all through? Or will the old ways of doing things be too hard to break? The future of Bangladesh is really hanging in that balance.